iPhone 7 Plus 1 year later experience. That video is coming up right now. Let's go. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to my iPhone 7 Plus 1 year later full experience video. Now, I was gonna do should you buy iPhone 7 Plus in 2018, so this will count as that video, but it's kind of obvious for this one. Of course, this is still a good phone to buy, but rather than that, I want to share with you my 1 year experience with this device. Let's kick it off by talking about the key specifications. A refresh is we have an A10 CPU, 3 GB of RAM. We have a dual 12 megapixel camera here on the rear, and on the front we do have a 7 megapixel camera, 1920 by 1080p P3 display with a capacitive home button. This did launch with iOS 10, but now you see that we do have iOS 11 on board. So that's pretty much what you need to know about the iPhone 7 Plus. Let's talk about my hardware, design, and build experience now. Okay, so let me talk about my hardware and design experience. Now, first of all, it's beautiful. This device is nothing like I've seen before when it comes to the jet black. The way they did this aluminum up in shiny and polishy, it's really unique in its own right. However, it hasn't held up in terms of durability that well over time. So while it is a nice design, you can see I got a little dent there. And this wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if I had, an aluminum iPhone. Now, those can get dented as well, but I have none of these on any of my aluminum phones. Also, this device is scratched in a ton of places on the 7 Plus, especially on jet black. Now, those of you who have a matte black or a silver edition, I know you guys are going to probably say that you don't have this issue, because you shouldn't have this issue. This is due to the polish on the material. Apple even came out and stated that this device will scratch easier. Also, you can see just based on, showing you up close, all the smudges that you do get on this body. So I do like the iPhone 7 Plus's overall design, because to me, it was like a more polished, refined version of the iPhone 6 and 6S, which were pretty good design. However, with the thicker bezels, now if you're buying this in 2018, there's a lot of competition with narrower bodies and maybe you could say thinner bezels, which makes this questionable. However, the power under hood on this phone is quite spectacular. Now, I really did enjoy this hardware capacitive key. I think it was a big update over that first generation click button, which I didn't like as much as this one. It's just much more responsive and it feels quicker. And when you shut the phone off, it doesn't click. But overall, I love this button on the 7 Plus. So that's my overall hardware experience. I did like the fact that it's lighter than the new 8 Plus. This one is like 170 or so grams. This is a big phone, but it's also pretty light. So, it does have a pretty good amount of width though. So if you're buying this phone is really wide, but being that it's pretty light, it doesn't feel like too much in the hand if you ask me. Okay, so I'm gonna discuss my display experience over a year using the iPhone 7 Plus. So first of all, color accuracy on this device is spot on. And what I mean by that is that this is the P3 color gamut. You know that was one of the things they touted. And this does translate to a real world better experience when it comes to display. It's a little bit warmer than, a cooler display. So if you like a warm temperature, you will love the iPhone 8 or 7 Plus's display, but it's not super vibrant like a OLED panel. So it's not going to punch out at your face too much with its zingy colors and stuff like that. However, at 1080p resolution at 5.5 inches, it's still plenty sharp enough. And I think that because it doesn't have that, flicker invisible, it's called PWM, nighttime, this is a very good display to read long hours on. So if you'd like to read a lot on your phone or you like to edit photos, very accurate and very good for reading on this device. Now, video, I would still recommend an OLED panel. So if you're a big video watcher, you might want to take a look at Apple iPhone 10 or other OLED screen phones in this category. But if you edit photos and you read a lot, this one's going to be fantastic. In terms of brightness, it always got plenty bright. Had a little trouble sometimes seeing this outside, but nothing like a cheap phone or nothing like that. It was still able to be legible. Just cannot beat some of those really high nit OLED panels that Samsung is putting in their phones. So this one still is a little bit behind when it comes to the full brightness level, in my opinion. Okay, so let me get on the software. So you can see I'm rocking iOS 11.2.2 on the 7 Plus. And, it's gotten better since the beta editions. The iOS 11 runs okay here on the 7 Plus. When the iPhone 7 Plus first launched on iOS 10, this thing was a screamer. It was super quick, super fluid. Animations were very fast. And while it's still a screamer, I think to this day, in terms of the performance levels of this device, it doesn't feel quite as quick as it did on launch day when the 7 Plus first launched. So if you're still on iOS 10, I would probably stay on that for a little while unless you're really concerned about security and stuff like that. But really, this iOS runs okay on here. I don't have too much of a problem with it on the 7 Plus, but I do have a problem with something else that iOS has done to this device, and we'll discuss that a little bit later in this video. You get the new control center here on the 7 Plus, and you get the new wallpapers in some of the later iOS editions that do give you some of those wallpapers you would get in an iPhone 8. So if we go to choose new wallpaper, go to stills, you can see those are those iPhone 8 wallpapers right there. Also, these are all the iOS 11 ones down here. You do no longer have the fish wallpapers, which a lot of people thought was a little thing that was, why did they remove that? I agree. I like those wallpapers. And you don't get the little, that little blue ball that came on the front of the phone when it was like advertised. Even on, I think online right now, you'll see like that little diamond in the middle of the wallpaper. That's no longer included. And also you get bolder fonts in here. You get the control center with all these like new features you can put in here. On the whole, I don't think it improved the software experience that much. And the iPhone 7 Plus honestly got a little bit slower than it did on iOS 10. So software is kind of, it's okay. It's still probably better than a lot of cheaper Android phones and some older, slower iPhones. Definitely way better than that. But to me, it's not the best of the best it can be. So what about performance with the iPhone 7 Plus? I'm not going to talk too long about this. It's very fluid, very quick here. Like I say, iOS sometimes does give you some glitches and bugs here and there, even on these later iOS 11.2.2 editions. However, the speed and performance of this is still a rocket on the 7 Plus. Again, it's not faster than it felt to me on iOS 10, but still very quick. If you're thinking about buying this, just go check out some of my speed tests with it. On iOS 11, one of the earlier editions of beta, it was still a little bit faster in some cases than Samsung's Galaxy Note 8, and that's their newer phone. So definitely very fast phone here still on the iPhone 7 Plus. No issues there. Don't worry about performance. This thing's going to be a screamer for a couple years to come still. Okay, so let's talk about them dual cameras. One of the biggest selling points of the iPhone 7 Plus with its dual camera. The iPhone 7 Plus was one of the first phones to come out with this, and when it did, everybody started coming out with dual cameras. So, while it wasn't the first phone with a dual camera, it's one of those phones that kind of led the industry and made everybody else want to copy them. OnePlus. And 12 megapixels on both of these cameras. I gotta tell you though, this has been one of the best, fantastic iPhone cameras I've ever used in the 7 Plus, and so good in fact that if you get an iPhone 8 or 8 Plus, you cannot really see any difference. Now, I'm not going to show you a bunch of samples in this video. I will leave a link to my camera video right up here on the 7 Plus in a card or down below in the description where you can see more in depth how this camera does perform. But you do get 4K 30, you do get slow-mo, you get the usual suspects on the iPhone experience, and on the whole, very accurate, very well balanced pictures. You're going to love the camera if you decide to get the iPhone 7 Plus, even here on 2018. So let's discuss my experience with the battery life over 1 year of using this device. I'm not going to say it's phenomenal, but it's been good. Not great, not phenomenal. It's been good. I'll get through a day pretty easily on this. It's actually a little bit better than my battery life on the iPhone 10 even. So I find this battery life definitely respectable. Now, you turn on the low power mode, you're definitely going to eke out a couple hours more, maybe an hour or so better on the 7 Plus. If you got the brightness turned all the way up, this thing definitely drains some juice. And if you're watching videos a lot, it will drain a lot of juice. If you're using applications that don't require a lot of power, then it should last quite some time. On the whole, iOS 11 definitely did decrease the overall battery life of this phone. However, I do want to mention that in the latest iOS version, the 11.2.2, for example, I've been seeing a significant bump in battery life, like a 5 to 10% better per day on this device. So battery life, it's looking good for the future of iOS. Also, Apple has said to you, they're going to include a feature where they will not allow you to, or they'll allow you to choose if you want to throttle the battery performance instead of them just doing it in the background, which caused a bunch of lawsuits. I'm sure you've heard about it already. On the whole, battery life on a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a solid 9 out of 10. Okay guys, so let's discuss audio with the iPhone 7 Plus. So if you see right there, that is a scratch on the paint. This thing does rub off, so be careful if you get a 7 Plus jet black. Keep it in a case because I didn't have it in a case on this particular drop that I had, and it rubbed off. Now, you see that there is no headphone jack here. Big controversy. We all know dongle life by now, don't we? If you don't pay attention to Apple, you probably don't, but if you do, basically it's this little tiny little ding-a-ling thing that goes into the phone, and then you lose it, and then you got to buy another one. You lose the next one you got to buy, you got to get Bluetooth headphones if you use an iPhone 7 or 7 Plus. And when I first got this phone, I wasn't ready for that, but I since have invested and it's not a problem anymore. On the whole though, I would still rather have a headphone jack than not have one. And I think that really was Achilles heel of this device. It was almost perfect, but no headphone jack. So that took it away from being perfect in my opinion. Now you could say, what do you mean perfect? Look at that design. Bezels, when it first launched, late 2016, really? Everybody was already starting to move that trend towards, thinner, lighter, less thick bezels, and they did bezels again. However, in all the categories that mattered, screen, resolution, camera, speed, battery life, this phone had it all, but no headphone jack. So I'm not going to talk too much more about that. Let's get on to the speakers though. You have a speaker up here and a speaker at the bottom. Those have sound fantastic. If you are watching a Nick Ackerman video, so let's go check it out, Nick Ackerman channel, and let's go watch one of these videos on my channel, and you'll just see how loud it really is. So let's go to videos. Let's see about the SE2, for example. So let's get through this little tiny ad. No, I don't want chocolate frosted flakes today. You hear that? Cover it right there. You can still hear it. One more time. Still hear it. So overall, very good experience when it comes to that audio portion. On the whole, I have to give audio, I'm going to have to take a point off. It's a 9 out of 10. I got to take it off, a point off for the headphone jack. Okay, so I want to talk about gaming. I'm going to pull out the silly Jetpack Joyride game that requires no power because I don't really game that much on this device. But what I can tell you is in my early on testing phases, I did do some gaming comparisons, and a 7 Plus can handle pretty much everything you could throw at it. Graphical prowess is on point with this device. Bezels are nice and thick, so you guys can go ahead and maneuver this when gaming. That's a great feature of having bezels, is for gamers. Why you think the Razer phone launched in 2017 with very chunky bezels, because you can hold on to them while you're playing games. So that's one argument for the bezels. On the whole, if you're buying this phone at a good discount, the gaming performance is going to be exceptional, better than most devices you can buy. So really good. This phone doesn't even get that warm when you're playing games. So I like it for gaming. Okay, so 1 year later, how's the calling experience been? First of all, signal strength strong on the 7 Plus for me. The calling experience has been, there's a couple areas where it was great and a couple areas where it wasn't so great. First of all, the speakerphone was great. So it was really good when it comes to talking on the speakerphone. I had some issues with Bluetooth and, talking to people through headsets connectivity with this phone. So some people said they couldn't hear me worth of nothing on this device. When I was talking through the speakerphone or the earpiece, it was good. So it's half and half for me, but it definitely is still better than average because it has great signal strength. I haven't had no drop calls, whereas earlier iPhones, iPhone 4, 4S, back in them days, signal strength was but the 7 Plus pretty good with its signal strength. So overall, good. It's going to be a solid phone for just the phone portion of this device. Okay, so we have arrived at the final conclusion. What is my final thoughts after 1 year using this device? Should you buy it right now? Is it worth it at this point in the year? OnePlus 5T, $500, dual camera, 18:9, 1080p display. What I'm trying to get at here is that you have options at around the price point the 7 Plus is going to run you. Now, you want to put Android aside and you want to say, I want an iOS device. I'm not looking for an Android device, Nick. Well, consider that you still have just a little bit more money to give and you get an 8 or an 8 Plus. The 7 Plus is still around $600. You're only about $100 off of an 8 or an 8 Plus. So what I want to say here is that if you don't need a 60 FPS frames per second, if you don't need a slightly faster speed, and I mean slight on the 8 and 8 Plus, the 7 Plus, save yourself some money and get it. Now, the jet black itself does present its own issues, smudges all over the place, scratches all over the place, just not the most durable, but if you do keep it clean, it is probably the prettiest looking iPhone 7 Plus you can buy. Now, the 7 Plus, there's only a couple negatives to me. Like I said, the scratches is jet black only, but the no headphone jack, the battery life could be better. You know, it doesn't have an OLED screen. I don't think that's really a negative, but it's a pretty very well-rounded phone. So find this guy on a deal, go for it. I think it's still absolutely worth it here in 2018. That might change as the year goes on and we see more, more competition in the mid-range. But right now, this phone still feels very premium, and I think you could find it for right around $450, $500. Go for it. It's a great deal. Anyway, if you found this video helpful, enjoyable, do me a favor, click that like button for me. And if you're new here, consider subscribing for more tech videos like this. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. I'm out of here. Peace.